This is the Read, Write, and Create podcast, the podcast where you get a bite-sized session of creative writing coaching from me, Lori L. Tharps. I'm an award-winning author of both fiction and nonfiction, a journalist, and a former college professor. I've spent more than 20 years writing, teaching, and coaching creative writers, and I created this podcast because I want to help as many BIPOC writers as possible get their stories out of their heads and into the world. Are you ready? Let's go. Happy New Year, writers, wordsmiths, and scribes. I know. I'm supposed to be on my winter break, plotting and planning fresh new episodes for season 3 of the podcast. And I promise I am. But I had to pop on here to share an important announcement about the show. Now, I will spare you all of the legal details because they are both boring and tedious, and I will jump right to the main plot point. I am officially changing the name of this podcast from Read, Write, and Create to Read, Write, and Create. I know, you didn't hear the change, right? That was intentional. The thing is, because of trademark issues, I had to change the name of the podcast and the entire Read, Write, and Create brand, but I didn't want to lose the basic logo and branding that we already had. So thanks to my incredibly witty linguist husband, we came up with the idea of simply changing Read, R-E-A-D, to Read, R-E-E-D. Sounds the same, but it's a completely different word and works for trademark purposes. But even better, it actually makes perfect sense for a brand that champions BIPOC stories and storytelling. Here's why. You ready for a little story? Of course you are. Here we go. So in ancient Egypt, a seemingly magical plant known as the papyrus plant grew along the banks of the Nile River. The green flower of the plant burst forth like the rays of the sun, and the base of the plant that drew its nutrients from the Nile was in the shape of a pyramid. Everything about the papyrus plant was auspicious and seemed holy to the Egyptian people. But more than its visual imagery that spoke to the people, the papyrus plant was a godsend because of its many utilitarian uses. The reeds of the plant, which look like sugarcane or bamboo, are thick and green on the outside. When peeled, those thick green outer layers were used to make sandals, mats, baskets, and rope. But the inner layer of the reeds of the papyrus plant revolutionized the world because they were used to make papyrus. Yes, that is the precursor to paper. So the reeds, those inner reeds, were stripped, pounded, woven together, and then dried in the sun. The results were scrolls that people could write on. These scrolls were lightweight, flexible, and best of all, could travel. Unlike the rocks, stone tablets, and cave walls where folks had been forced to write things on prior to the discovery of papyrus scrolls. And you know what happened when they put a whole bunch of scrolls covered with text together, when they bound them all together, right? Yes, they created the first books. Yes, real books on paper, on papyrus to be specific. And these books, filled with knowledge, information, and stories, could now travel great distances because they were so light, unlike a stone tablet or a cave wall. So pretty soon, papyrus scrolls made from the reeds that grew along the Nile were in great demand from civilizations in Africa, Europe, and Asia, people who wanted to document their stories and their wisdom and send them out into the world. You see where I'm going with this, right? You see how this name change almost feels divinely ordered, right? I mean, the reed of the papyrus is the beginning of paper. It's the origin story of the book. It is how the Egyptian people got their stories and their culture out into the world and then paved the way for others to do the same. Just like I'm doing with this brand, with this podcast, with everything I do with Read, Write, and Create. Am I saying that my company, my brand is at the same level as the invention of paper? No, I'm not that full of hubris, but I do want to be known as a brand that is all about making it easier to get our stories out into the world. So there you have it. We are now Read, Write, and Create, where our origins, REED, lead to the writing and the creation. So please make a note that Read, Write, and Create will now be known as Read, Write, and Create. You don't have to adjust or change anything in your podcast feed. You don't have to even change your links to the website because we've taken care of all that back end of things in terms of where you will be directed if you accidentally use the READ instead. However, if you are new to the podcast or recommending it to somebody and they're looking for it from scratch, definitely search REED, Write and Create going forward, including on all of our social handles as well. We'll put a link to all the new links, new websites, everything like that in the show notes. That's it for now. Back to my break, and I hope 2024 is off to a great start for everyone. Until February, keep writing.